In other big news over the weekend, bigger news probably than this march, which was helped out by a bunch of organizing groups, which is fine. Stormy Daniels, obviously, is the big news of the weekend. So her interview on 60 Minutes was put off for a little while by the Duke-Kansas game, which Duke lost. And Stormy Daniels finally comes on, and then there is a 60-minute interview with a very long interview. It's not all 60 minutes, with Anderson Cooper on CBS's 60 Minutes. And things got kind of crazy. So there are a bunch of things that Stormy Daniels said that were pretty wild. We knew most of this. Okay, so to start off, we knew most of this, right? So most of the stuff that we knew about Stormy Daniels, we already knew. Stormy Daniels, for those who don't know, is the star of movies like The Witches of Breastwick, as well as Watching Samantha, Secrets of the Velvet Ring, What's a Girl Gotta Do, I Know What You Did Last Night, and Porking with Pride 2. So she is just, she's one of the great actresses of our time. Ron Jeremy on the Loose, Atlantic City is one of her classics. Of course, Busty Beauties 2, Dripping Wet Sex 4. And she's really, she's class. I mean, she's all class. And one of the things about her that is worth noting is that I will say she has better script taste than half the stars in Hollywood, because the only two legit movies I can find her in are The 40-Year-Old Virgin and let's see, what was the other one? It's The 40-Year-Old Virgin and Knocked Up. So she's in both of those. She plays in one a lap dancer and in one a porn star. So I guess that's typecasting a little bit. I guess you wouldn't expect her to play like the female rocket scientist. But in any case, maybe Stormy Daniels is secretly brilliant. I tend to think that Stormy Daniels is a porn star and that she does things that porn stars do, like she has sex with men for transactional reasons. Now, listen, does this make Trump less scummy? No, the president, when it comes to women, is gross. I mean, this is unquestioned. Okay? And people who do question it are being stupid. Donald Trump with women is a pig. Okay, he's been a pig all of his life. This is a man who said that avoiding STDs in the 1970s was his own personal Vietnam. At a time when he could have been drafted and was claiming bone spurs in his heels, he was, in fact, off of his heels for a variety of other reasons. Donald Trump is a guy who said that nothing in life matters as long as you've got a young and beautiful piece of ass on your arm. This is a man who's had 3 wives and cheated on all of them, usually with a future wife. I mean, I suppose that we should consider ourselves lucky that Stormy Daniels isn't the current First Lady of the United States, considering Donald Trump's actual record here. And Donald Trump is a guy who was caught on tape saying that he grabs women by the bleep. Okay, Donald Trump is yucky with women. This we know. Okay, and criticizing Stormy Daniels for this public display is not exactly letting Donald Trump off the hook. Okay, other things that are worth noting about the situation. So here's the situation. Back in 2006, Stormy Daniels met Donald Trump at a golf course. Donald Trump was doing some sort of event, and she flirted with him, and then she went up to his room for dinner, and then she had sex with him, I guess one time, in the hopes that he would put her on The Apprentice. And then he did not, in fact, put her on The Apprentice, but he continued to flirt with her by phone. I guess the second time that they met, she went up to his room, and they watched Shark Week. No joke. Like, that's power play, Mr. President. Bringing the woman back up to your room, bringing the stars of Forrest Bump up to your room, and watching Shark Week. It's a move, I guess. That move did not end up working. But then, so Stormy Daniels claimed a couple of things in this interview. She claims in 2011 that after she gave the news to In Touch magazine that she had an affair with the president, why In Touch even thought that was newsworthy is beyond me. Apparently, they didn't think it was that newsworthy. They offered her like 15 grand for it. But in any case, she says that she was approached in a parking lot by a random dude, and that the random dude said to her that she had her kid with her, and he said it would be a pity if something happened to that kid's mom. Right? Threatened her about the In Touch story. She didn't provide any substantiation. She didn't, provide a description of the guy. We'll find out maybe more about that. Then she claims that in 2016 she was paid off by Michael Cohen, who's the president's lawyer, for $130,000 to keep her trap shut right before the election. She signed, she took it, and then she lied about having an affair with the president. She said, "No, I didn't have an affair with the president." Well, she had to explain all of that to Anderson Cooper. Now she claims, of course, she's being threatened by the president in some sort of nefarious way. What she's really being threatened with is violation of the non-disclosure, which is perfectly legal. Right? The only part here that there are two things that are legally questionable. Well, that would be illegal if they happen. One is Stormy Daniels being actually physically threatened by someone. That obviously is illegal. And the second is if Michael Cohen was giving a quote-unquote in-kind contribution to Donald Trump's campaign by paying Stormy Daniels out of his own pocket to keep her silent. So this is a very weird interview because Stormy Daniels starts off by talking about why exactly it is that she was, why she's doing the interview in the first place.
So he turned around and pulled his pants down a little, and he had underwear on and stuff, and I just gave him a couple swats. You are special. You remind me of my daughter. He's like, you're smart, beautiful, and a woman to be reckoned with. And I like you. I like you. Don't worry about that. We have separate rooms and stuff.
Did you two go out for dinner that night?
No.
You had dinner in the room?
Yes.
What happened next?
So I excused myself and I went to the restroom. You know, I was in there for a little bit and came out, and he was sitting, you know, on the edge of the bed when I walked out. Perched.
And you had sex with him?
Yes. I remember arriving, and he was watching Shark Week. He made me sit and watch an entire documentary about shark attacks.
It wasn't, at that point, a business meeting. It was just watching Shark Week.
Yeah.
Did you have sex with him again?
No. I was in a parking lot going to a fitness class with my infant daughter. I was taking, you know, the seats facing backwards in the back seat, diaper bag, you know, getting all the stuff out. And a guy walked up on me and said to me, "Leave Trump alone, forget the story." And then he leaned around and looked at my daughter and said, "A beautiful little girl, it'd be a shame if something happened to her mom." And then he was gone.
Okay, so let's go through some of this stuff. Okay, so first of all, the actual interview starts with Anderson Cooper asking, "Why are you doing this?" Right? He says, "I guess I'm not sure 100% on why you're doing this." And she says, "Because it was very important for me to be able to defend myself." And he's leading her. The whole interview, Anderson was really giving her leading questions like, is part of wanting to set the record straight? Why don't you just tell her that part of it is wanting to set the record straight? And then she says, "People are just saying that whatever they wanted to say about me, I was perfectly fine saying nothing at all, but I'm not okay with being made out to be a liar, or people thinking I did this for money. And people are like, oh, you're an opportunist. You're taking advantage of this. Yes, I'm getting more job offers now, but tell me one person who had turned down a job offer making more than they've been making, doing the same thing they've always done." She's doing it for the money. I mean, sorry I put this out. Again, this story is really not about Stormy Daniels. It's about the president of the United States being disgusting. I mean, he's the one who chose to put his thing in, you know, to act inappropriately with Stormy Daniels, shall we say, to put it mildly. Okay, that is the president of the United States' fault. He's an idiot, and he's disgusting when it comes to women. Have I made that clear? Have I said that enough times? Okay, he's gross. Yeah, I don't find the president's activity here even mildly defensible. But here's what I do object to. The media are trying to make Stormy Daniels to be some sort of victim. Okay, unless she was actually physically threatened. If she was physically threatened, she's a victim. Other than that, there's no victimization story here. She took $130,000 from a candidate for president of the United States to keep her mouth shut, and then she didn't shut up. Okay, and Stormy Daniels also said that she had consensual sex with Donald Trump. So this is not a Me Too moment. Now, what's really amazing is there are some people on the left who are trying to make it into a Me Too moment. And again, I'm happy to discuss all of the legal ramifications of this. It may be a campaign finance violation. I don't think it'll take down Trump because you really have to prove a lot to prove a campaign finance violation. And I can talk about the legal standard and all that in just a second. But when Stormy Daniels says that when the media try to make her out to be some sort of heroic figure, it just doesn't wash. It just doesn't wash. Of course she came out after the election cycle because her story was newly valuable. And it's worth more than $130,000. So she figures, okay, fine, I'll give him back the $130,000 and I'll make $500,000 by talking about all of this stuff publicly. Right? She probably isn't. I mean, again, she is transactional in this whole thing. Right? She said in this interview openly that she saw her sex with Trump as a business deal. She was asked, did you want to have sex with Trump? She said no. They said, were you attracted to Trump? She said no. They said, so why'd you have sex with Trump? And she said, well, I saw it as a business deal. Meaning that it was like she wanted to get on The Apprentice, and she thought maybe this would give her the possibility of getting on The Apprentice. And sex isn't exactly something that she's stingy about. So, all right. But now what's hilarious is the left is trying to make this into a Me Too moment. I've seen a couple of articles about how Stormy Daniels was victimized by the power of Donald Trump. Okay, no, she was not, up until the point where a threat was made. Okay, up until that point, she's a lady who knew that she was sleeping with a married man in order to get ahead in the business. And this does raise some issues about the nature of the Me Too movement in Hollywood as well, because a lot of the talk in the Me Too movement in Hollywood has been about young actresses having sex with older directors in fully consensual manner, and then suggesting that the power imbalance is the real problem. Well, is it possible that they saw the sex the same way that Stormy Daniels did? That she didn't really want to have sex with Trump, but she also knew that if she wanted to get ahead, that she would, like, Stormy Daniels herself said it was consensual. She never accused the president of sexual assault or rape of any sort. And so, again, the attempt to make Stormy Daniels into the hero of this story doesn't work. I think you can make Trump into the villain of the story. I think that it's hard to make Stormy Daniels into the hero of the story where she's clearly not the hero. So, again, as I'm fond of saying, two things can be true at once in the Stormy Daniels interview. Donald Trump can be disgusting. Also, as I say, it is not unevidenced that Donald Trump would have people threaten people. In fact, there are a bunch of accounts that are put out there by BuzzFeed News. BuzzFeed has a long story about how in the 1980s there were a bunch of threats surrounding Donald Trump. They've tweeted out a series of these threats, including there is one that in which a guy who called his name Carmine said called up somebody who was going to, I guess, sue Trump over a real estate issue. So my name is Carmine. I don't know why you're effing with Mr. Trump, but if you keep effing with Mr. Trump, we know where you live, and we're going to your house for your wife and kids. That's according to one caller. On April 20th, 1982, according to FBI records, one person called the New York Police Commissioner reporting that he had received a call threatening his life over an abatement in rent by Trump. The caller, the FBI records state, became very abusive and profane regarding Gliedman's inability to approve Mr. Trump's request for a tax abatement. Donald Trump's security guards once shoved, threatened, and held a 12-year-old boy and his mother against their will. This is the allegation after her husband promised to go public with damaging allegations against the Trump organization. Again, is thuggish behavior foreign to Trump's organization? No. And that's really what this is going to come down to. When you boil all of this down, what it's going to come down to in the end is whether Donald Trump had his people threaten Stormy Daniels. That's the only added element here. The reason people are watching this story as opposed to the 1,000 other stories about the Trump administration is because there's sex involved with a porn star. Obviously, that's going to be kind of titillating for the American public, and that's why they are interested on any level at all. But the only way that this story actually gains some sort of legs beyond just the general interest is if it turns out that Donald Trump actually sent somebody to physically threaten Stormy Daniels. In that case, then you're talking about a real scandal. If it just turns out that it's his lawyer paid somebody else to shut up, not sure that's a big enough scandal to take out Trump. Again, Trump abides by my strong market sufficiency theory. Everybody already knows what they think about Trump, good or bad, and there's not a lot of evidence that this is going to stick to them. Now, that's not going to stop a lot of people on the left from claiming that this is going to take down the president. But look, even Anderson Cooper had to go after Stormy Daniels' lawyer and point out that Daniels' lawyer is a former Democratic operative.
You seem to be saying that she has some sort of text message or video or photographs, or you could just be bluffing.
You should ask some of the other people in my career when they've been on me bluffing.
In college, in law school, you did opposition research for Democratic political operative Rahm Emanuel. Some people looking at that will say you're politically motivated.
I haven't done anything in politics in over 20 years.
But this is not the usual case you take on. You are a former Democratic operative, and you're talking about deposing the president. That sounds political.
No, it sounds righteous.
Okay, it doesn't necessarily sound righteous unless something righteous is actually going on here. And avoiding an agreement that you signed isn't exactly righteous activity. Again, I keep coming back to this. The only thing I think that matters in this entire Stormy Daniels story is if Trump sent somebody to threaten her, or if there's an actual campaign finance violation. Those are the only two things. Those could be big stories, but we don't have the evidence that those stories are true yet. And Stormy Daniels hasn't identified even the person who threatened her with Trump himself. So we're going to have to find out more about that. Listen, is it gross for the country that we're at this point? Of course, it's gross for the country that we're at this point. I do find the lack of memory irritating on the part of some of the media who don't seem to recall all the way back to the 1990s when Bill Clinton was lying repeatedly about sex. And the same members of the media who are currently batting Trump around for lying about sex were saying, well, everybody lies about sex, so it's no big deal. Remember, all of the talk about perjury, all of the criminal charges that were brought against President Clinton in the impeachment hearing by the House, in which he was actually impeached, all of that was brushed off by the media as he only lied about sex, so who cares? Well, I guess here they're not going to argue he only threatened about sex or he only signed an NDA about sex, so who cares? They're not going to do that because obviously it's Trump. But is it a sad state of affairs that this is the character of our public officials? Yes. Is it sad that the American people accept this? Yes. Is it pathetic that the President of the United States engaged in this sort of behavior and may continue to engage in this sort of behavior? Yes. It makes you sad for the Republic. It does. I mean, the Oval Office was once occupied by people like Ronald Reagan. It was once occupied by people like Calvin Coolidge. It was once occupied by people like Abraham Lincoln. And now, I guess it was built after Abraham Lincoln. But in any case, the White House was occupied by Abraham Lincoln. But bottom line is that the character of the country has declined rather markedly when it comes to these sorts of matters. And Trump is more a reflection.
We will make America great again.